You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Season 3, Episode 10, Ty's Time Machine. Written by Wendy Herman. Read by Wendy Herman. The voices were muffled, but I could tell they were agitated, arguing. My vision was returning slowly, but blurred with every overwhelming wave of nausea. I felt my leg twitch, and suddenly 2 blurry figures were hovering over me. Is he awake? Of course not. It was just a reflex. The other man, taller and younger, answered in a distinctly Russian accent. But his eyes are open. That's not an unexpected physiological response to the stimuli we're implanting. English, please. It's normal. The 2 turned their backs to me, seemingly disinterested once again, and resumed their measured argument. How do you expect to get clearance for this? It was not part of the original plan. Nothing that has happened since day 1 was part of the original plan, the Russian retorted. True, but this is very unorthodox. This is a human being we're talking about. A human being who will be a mental mess if we don't put something in there. You're talking about giving him false memories. Yes, to fill empty space. Empty space that you say was caused by the implant malfunctioning. I told you I already fixed the malfunction, but I couldn't restore his memories. Why not let him wake up and have amnesia for the rest of his life? The technology is very complicated, but I'll try to put it in terms you can understand. Thanks so much. Should I get my crayons and take notes? A heavy sigh of frustration. When a person has amnesia, the memories are still in the brain. The conscious mind just can't access them. Right? Because the implant essentially operated as a second sort of mini-brain, the gaps the malfunction created are literally empty space. The memories were deleted. They're gone. Forever. He paused to make sure the other man was following, and he got a small nod to continue. The brain will interpret this empty space as brain damage, and that's bad? Yes, it could be. Could be. It could cause his brain to shut down completely. And you're risking everything, your job, his life, to give him memories that aren't really his, and hope his brain doesn't reject them and shut down anyway. Yes. And you are just planning to appoint yourself as official memory maker? You're going to make up the memories yourself. I'm the only one who can manipulate the technology to such detail. And you're going to do all this out of the goodness of your heart. A chuckle. Yes, that and a possible groundbreaking, career-making success story in the field of memory fabrication that would guarantee me a place in the history books. Of course. Look, the bottom line here is, either way, there's a chance his brain is already fried. Why not at least try to give him a life, real or not? I lay there listening, my eyes closed now. I was frantically searching my memories, desperate to find the empty spaces the 2 men were talking about. I concentrated on my earliest recollection as a child and went from there. Elementary school, middle school, high school, enlisting in the Marine Corps, then college, and meeting Freya. I couldn't find any holes that hadn't been there before, like the missing memory of Freya and I breaking up, but that didn't calm me down. It was entirely possible I wouldn't know if I had missing memories, because they would be missing. But I did have missing memories, and I did know about it. Maybe they were talking about my gaps with Freya from 20 years ago. But how did they know? I had only told Freya. My head began to throb with pain. The whole situation felt wrong. I decided to fight and open my eyes, locating all the tubes that were hooked up to various parts of my body, and devising a plan to pull them all out at once, if possible. That's when I noticed it. The thickest tube, about 1 inch in diameter, coming from a large machine and going into my head. It was just like Freya had described in her flashback of Trevor reprogramming her to love him and not me. Panic rose inside me and doubled, no, tripled, when I realized I couldn't move anything but my eyes. I tried not to make any noise as I heard my heart rate increase on one of the many machines I was hooked up to. The nurse monitoring the machines punched a few buttons before mentioning the change aloud. I closed my eyes to hide the fact that I was conscious. Doctor, his heart rate just jumped. I dared to open my eyes again and caught a glimpse of the young man standing over me, checking all the wires and connections, before I slammed them shut again, afraid he would look at my face. I had seen enough to know that, aside from the obvious, something wasn't right. It was Trevor, and he was young, very young, but that wasn't the shocking part. The man I'd heard speaking with a Russian accent was also the man leaning over me now. Trevor was Russian. I knew now that I was having a flashback, but for the first time I was aware that I was having one while it was happening, and therefore aware that it wasn't real, or at least that it wasn't in real time. The last thing I remembered was being with Freya inside Trevor's jail cell, and Trevor calling me Riptide. He'd never called me that before, that I could recall, and the mere sound of the word had made my head spin. Something about his voice saying that word. The bastard had used the activation word on me. But then, why didn't I just kick his ass when my ninja skills were turned on? It must have been a word that triggered something else. He must have programmed my implant to not just turn on and off, but to control my behavior as well. And it only responded to his voice. Suddenly I felt a tugging sensation inside my head, and then searing pain. I tried to scream, but no sound came. I tried to open my eyes to see what was going on, but there was only darkness. When the pain subsided, I saw a tunnel of light. It got bigger and bigger, and made me think of The Wizard of Oz, when Glinda the Good Witch made her first appearance in her pink glowing orb of light. I remembered watching that movie on TV when I was a child. It was so amazing and magical, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen, even during the short commercial breaks. I didn't want to miss a second. The light was filling my vision now, and I could see a blurry silhouette. As it became clear, I realized it was Freya. She was glowing like Glinda, and so beautiful. But her face was tense. She was worried about something. Her mouth was moving, and a moment later my hearing came back with a pop that startled me. Ty, can you hear me? Why are you yelling? I'm right in front of you. She sighed and smiled. I was lying on the floor, my head in Freya's lap. Talk about a great way to wake up from a nightmare. She was stroking my hair and smiling at me still, but something was missing in her expression. Her smile was shallow, like my waking up was just a minor victory. As I regained my bearings, she let me sit up, slowly. That's when I felt like I might be able to talk without hurling. Uh-oh. Deep breath. Nope, I'm okay. What's going on? Who's Glinda? I looked up at Freya, and she was raising both eyebrows at me. Glinda? The Good Witch? I ran my fingers through my hair as I tried to figure out how she knew what I'd been thinking before I came to. She softened considerably. From The Wizard of Oz? I nodded, but had to close my eyes to keep the tunnel vision at bay. You were dreaming about Glinda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz? Sort of. She shook her head and laughed. How did you know I was thinking about that movie? You mumbled her name right before you woke up. I chuckled softly. Just don't ever do that during sex, she ordered. I looked at her and we both smiled. Then I was rudely brought back to our current situation and remembered I had some important information. Frey, I have to tell you something about Trevor. I lost my train of thought as I realized where we were. Trevor's cell. But no Trevor. Where's Trevor? She stopped smiling. The bastard escaped. I felt like I'd been sucked into a parallel universe. Trevor couldn't have escaped. He would have had to have outside help. Holy shit. I found Freya's eyes. No, was all I could muster. I didn't need her to say it. I could read her mind these days. She pursed her lips and sighed. How could I have been so stupid? Trevor did have a man on the outside, and we had driven him there.
You're listening to Big World Network.